If you don't know me, my name is Lana. I'm the Life Kids Director here at Life Church. I work with nursery all the way through 5th grade. And obviously it's been kind of a strange season. And so we have been kind of scratching our heads trying to figure out how to just how to support parents during this time. And so we're just hoping that the next hour or so is encouraging and practical. We brought together some of our best and brightest parenting and schooling minds, who I will introduce to you guys in just a minute. And we're really going to try to keep this to an hour because we know everybody's got kids at home and stuff like that. So I've got questions that some people had already submitted beforehand, but if you have a question, you can type it into the chat and we'll see it and we'll answer it. And then I also just wanted to let you know that, we're focused on kind of school here, but I mean, it's all just kind of issues that are brought on or exacerbated by, COVID and homeschooling and all that. So, people had asked questions about like discipline and just different things like that. And so if we have time, I would love to be able to touch those things too, just, whatever is on your heart and your mind right now. And, let's see here. So I want to introduce our panel to you. I don't know if your screen looks like mine does, but I'm going to try to go in order here. So on my left side, right under Jeff, is Morgan and her husband, Adam. And Morgan has been homeschooling for how long, Morgan? 5? 10?
9 years. Yeah, almost about,
9.
yeah.
9 years. Okay, so you have some experience. And Morgan is also a doula. She does a lot of really cool stuff. And so she's got a really awesome creative mind as well, real organized. And so super happy to have her here. She's going to tell you, all these people will tell you a little more about what they do, but I'm just going to give you the kind of the rundown. And then right next to Morgan, we have Heidi Wills, who is also a homeschooling mom. How long have you been doing it?
8 years.
8, yeah, okay. So Heidi also has lots of experience. You have 4 kids, and both of you guys work in Life Kids as well. So I've just had a lot of opportunities just to see you using your gifts with the kids, and I'm super excited to just hear more about your experience and just kind of what you guys are thinking and what you have to offer. Under Morgan, we have Todd Dowell, who is a principal at what school is it in Oroville?
Wyandotte Academy.
Wyandotte Academy, right. So Todd also has 3 grown children, so he has a lot of experience, not just as an educator, but as a parent, and you're in the middle of trying to help teachers and families and stuff navigate all this stuff. So you've got some really great, timely words for us, I'm sure. And then right next to Todd is Steve Wright, who is the principal of Achieve, which is the charter school on our campus at Life Church. And so we've just been so blessed to get to know Steve and his family and the teachers and the kids at Achieve. And I'm super excited just to hear what you guys have to say. And you're also boots on the ground right now, just trying to navigate all of this. So just really excited to hear what you guys have to say. Let's see. So I'm just going to hand this over to Morgan, and I'm going to have each of you just go through. I just want you to tell me a little bit about just kind of who you are, what you do, like what's going on in your life right now, and then just like best, do we want to go into that right now, Jeff, the best practices? Yeah. So we're just going to give them a chance to talk about what do you see right now? What do you think is the best way to approach the situation that you might be in, just to make your life easier, and kind of what is the standard as far as, what they do. So, all right, Morgan, take it away.
All right. Hey, and I also have this guy here with me. I pulled him in because he is a special ed teacher and has a lot of really good insight and knowledge and skills too. So any questions about that, people can shoot in. But we've been homeschooling officially for 9 years, but I mean, I think any parent, I think it's important to acknowledge that you're homeschooling all the time. Like that's what you do at home. You're teaching your children even just relationships and behavior. And if you take your kids to the store, I mean, you talk about prices or whatever, there's like always schooling going on when you're talking about what time it is and what time their favorite show is, or if you have 5 minutes to get ready, like that's homeschooling. So I think we're all on that team if we're a parent. But to officially homeschool, Yeah, I started 9 years ago, and it's been a journey. It's been lots of ups and downs. I feel like I should I feel like I have, almost with this COVID stuff going on, I feel like I have homeschool privilege in a way, because I have the experience, but also the freedom that homeschool has given us, where we have a variety of curriculum, we get to try lots of new things, and we have a lot of freedom where distance learning, there isn't. So, but I think within the midst of that, the creativity can be born, and taking whatever you have and making the most of it and using it at home the way it suits your family best, I think is very possible, and can make this time really actually special, and beneficial and a blessing. So best practices, I'm trying to think, do you have any?
Best practice.
As far as everything that's going on, I think just at home in general, school, I think, is just almost never going to be the same. It really seems like. So I think having your priorities aligned as a family first is really important, because what happens in our home is key. The education that we are giving our kids just day to day is so much more important than learning how to do 6 times 4. So to have those priorities straight as a family and spend the time to pray and to really hear those from the Lord too, helps, because when we have our list so full of things, it can be very overwhelming. So making sure that we have our priorities straightened up with the Lord and with our family, I think can really help simplify things and take stress away. So for us at home right now, we have our regular homeschool routine, and we've been blessed to kind of keep going with business as usual for the most part. But this year, even, it's my 9th year, and we try new things every year. And I think that's good to keep in mind too, that like, even those of us who've been doing this forever, we're always learning and changing and growing with our kids and with our families, depending on just what's happening in the world around us. So this year, I'm focusing on, well, without the smoke, I've been trying to focus a lot more on relationships, connecting with humans, because that's something that is never going to go away. And because we're not meant to be alone, we are made for relationship, and just physical activity. And my kids' health is making sure, like, because we're in a pandemic and there's so many factors that can increase our risks or decrease our risks. And so I feel like at home we can do all those things to help decrease our risks, because this thing's not really going away. So if that makes sense there. But to keep a routine in general, I think it just helps the kids feel safe and secure too.
I love that. Yeah, that's really great. So you're talking about routines, but also like flexibility. So do you guys have like a set schedule every day that you do?
Yeah, in a rough schedule. Yeah. Do you want me to spell it out?
I'm sure I feel like we'll probably get some questions about that. And when we do, I'll field them to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I really love that. I love just the idea that you're always schooling. I think sometimes, especially, for people who this whole thing is so different than what they're used to, that's kind of a new, concept of just like, okay, we're always learning. It doesn't have to be, compartmentalized, but I know that there's also an aspect of, that distance learning that is a little bit, so maybe we can hear more of that from our principals. All right. And then also I just wanted to point out, I really love talking about your values and your priorities at home, because I think that'll really help you, figure out what to do next. I love that. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, Heidi.
Oh.
Hi. I have 4 kiddos, and like we said already, this is our 8th year homeschooling. I have 4 school-age kids, 7th, 5th, 2nd, I think, and the one that really throws us all for a loop is the baby. He's 2. That's a whole nother layer of fun. But I think just to piggyback a lot of what Morgan said, we have some of those same things that happen in our home. And what was pressing on my heart leading up to today was one thing that I do that's been really helpful in this season is I'm still a very list-oriented person, and we do have things that we need to get done in our home. And so, every morning I can take my list and I pray with my list and I say, God, what do you want me to do today? And Lord, if you can help me get done what you have for me today, then I have so much more peace about what I've done and what I haven't done, because it's busy in our house. And so that's really been a little change we've done this year that's been really helpful. Keeping realistic expectations is huge. We do have a baby running around, and so things get interrupted a lot and we come back to it. So just being able to be real with what the day is going to look like, what the Lord has for us today. As a family, we can check in about that, each day. And so hand the day over to him, and it's been really helpful. And I guess something else that I've been thinking about also is that we're all going through so much change this year, right? And even as Morgan said, we're pretty much homeschooling. We are kind of business as usual. There's been some tweaks though in ours, in our schedule. A lot of our extracurricular stuff has changed, and it's just saying that it's a change for our family also. And so just being able to extend grace to myself and my children and my husband who's not traveling anymore, and those kind of things, it's just kind of rocked our world a little bit. Not as much, obviously, as trying to transition, but just being able to be being grace-filled in all situations that are happening right now. And I guess what also I have this little just kind of on my mirror in my bathroom, but this isn't a surprise to the Lord, right? Like, God knew that these days were going to be here, and he prepared each and every one of us going through this time for these days. And so just trying to remember that he prepared me to go through this pandemic with my children, and whatever the changes are has also been really helpful in my soul to just kind of settle down some of those thoughts about, oh, it looks so different. What are we going to do? And we're home like all the time now. And while we are usually home, we usually have other things happening. So, but focusing on those relationships has been huge right now, and especially within our house. Just because for so long there, though, we couldn't go anywhere. So just family relationships just got an extra dose of love this time of this year, but just some good things. And Morgan, I was like, same as Morgan said, but really routines are important in our home too. And for us, it works better to have a routine as opposed to like a really strict schedule, because this is a really great time to take advantage that we are all in our homes and we're in control. And if we need to kind of move things around, like, it's okay. It's good. It can happen like that. We can adjust and be flexible, but at the same time, keeping that routine to keep it consistent for the kiddos. So those are just some things that I had on my heart that were helpful right now without getting into logistical things.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I just have a quick question for Morgan and Heidi. Do you guys have any like side jobs, or is homeschooling like your thing? I'm just wondering, do you have like things that you have to, because we have a lot of parents, trying to work from home right now. Is there anything that you guys do where you kind of have to do two things at once like that?
I direct a homeschool program. It's kind of a, there's a big group of kiddos that do, well, it looks a lot different right now, but, kind of a clash-ish kind of thing. And so one day a week, so I do that.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to hear more about that as we move through that Q&A, because I'm pretty sure we'll have a lot of those types of questions too. Great. Thank you so much. All right. Todd.
Do you want me to say my jobs too?
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. I didn't know.
We don't have to. Yeah, I write a column for the ER once a month, and I am helping manage a friend of mine's political campaign right now. And I'm on our school's council, our charter council. So those are things that I get to juggle around homeschooling as well, meeting those needs.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Cool. Looking forward to hearing more about, I need to hear more about that. How do you do two things at once? All right, Todd, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Todd Dell. I am the principal of an elementary school in Oroville. This is my 5th year there. And I'm going to have a little different perspective from all the other panel members, which is kind of awesome because we want to get that variety of perspectives. Not only that, but I think Lana mentioned or Jeff mentioned that I do have 3 daughters. My youngest is 16. I have an 18-year-old and a 21-year-old. My youngest is a senior at Chico High, and then I have one that's doing online learning at Santa Barbara City College. And then my oldest is in the nursing program at Chico State. And they've all had to deal with distance learning. And, you know, distance learning has some positives to it. And some of them have kind of been discussed. There has been an opportunity to have more family time. I've actually got to do some work from home, which, you know, that's kind of nice being here during the day instead of leaving, you know, when it's dark and getting home when it's dark. I get to see my kids more. And even if it's just like 5 seconds as they're walking by to get something from the kitchen. So I think it's really important to try to find the positives where you can, because there's lots of negatives going all around. And you know, being a principal, oftentimes I do get to hear a lot of the negatives, which is a bummer, but I do get to hear a lot of the positives too. How do I do that? It starts at home. Before I even leave my house, I have quiet time with the Lord. That is something that we all have to have, because every day, you know, that verse about, you know, His mercy is new every morning. That implies that we're supposed to be getting that mercy, which means we need to be having that connection with God on a regular basis, because yesterday's mercy isn't necessarily going to make it for today, especially in times like this where your job might be crazy. Being a homeschool mom I know has got to be crazy. Whatever you're doing is taking on a whole new level of craziness, because we all know why. You step out the door and it's not like it used to be. So you have to get grounded, and that comes through spending time with the Lord. And I found that I try to find verses that are directly related to the issues that I'm having. So right now I'm dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety about what's school going to look like? How am I going to help these kids that haven't been online for 2 weeks, 3 weeks? We tried to get a hold of them, but we haven't. It's like, okay, deep breaths. And that's one of the things that we're doing in our school is you know, it used to be just like the 3 R's, read, write, arithmetic. You know, there's so much more to it nowadays. There's so much with the social emotional piece. And so we're spending a lot of time in our class sessions, in our Google Meets, talking about emotions and talking about feelings and how do we process those. And in a society like we are in today, kids need to learn at an early age how to deal with that, whether it's deep breathing, whether there's so many different ways to do deep breathing, or being mindful of where you're at and leaving all those things that might be weighing on you out at the door or in the closet or wherever you want to put it, and just, where am I right now? Stay where I'm at so I can do what I need to do to the best of my abilities. I could get a little like, you know, some terms for education right now. You got synchronous, you got asynchronous, which basically just means right now for regular education students in public schools, there's a certain amount of minutes they're supposed to be face-to-face with their teacher, whether it's on a Zoom or Google Meet. There's also a number of minutes that they're supposed to be doing by themselves. Maybe it's an assignment that the teacher has sent out, maybe it's an online program. Right now, things have sort of mellowed out a little bit with technology, but schools have had to deal with technology because everybody had to do this at the same time. And so all those technology platforms really took a beating because everybody needed access. So you probably had some of those issues if you were at home trying to get into your teachers' classrooms. Very frustrating for parents, very frustrating for kids, very frustrating for educators. It's frustrating for everybody, but it's kind of leveling out, so that's a good thing. And you just have to remember, you got to give yourself grace because you haven't done this before. You haven't, even homeschool parents are not dealing with it like they've had to in the past. Everybody's having to to dig a little deeper. And you got to have grace for yourself, and you got to have grace for your kids, because they're doing something that they haven't had to do before. And I know I'm kind of running along, so I'll try to cut things here. A couple more things. One size does not fit all. Okay. One size does not fit all. You know that. Raising, if you've been a parent for if you've had a parent of more than one kid, you know, 2 kids, same parents, woo, different. You got to give that kid the opportunity to be who God made them to be. You still got to keep the fire under them so they're not just sitting around doing nothing, but you got to let them be who they're called to be. You got to know when to put the brakes on. You can't overstress a kid, because then you're going to get nothing. But you also got to know when to push the gas, and that's wisdom. God will give that to you. You just got to ask him for it. Mm-hmm. It does take patience, takes flexibility. You got to be a listener. And this next one is something that I really have to deal with a lot with families and my staff, is keeping lines of communication open. As a parent, you really have to let your teacher know what's going on. If something's coming up, the teacher isn't going to know it unless you tell them. If there's a death in the family, just don't say it's absent. Call in or do whatever it is your school has you do to let them know that your kid's absent. Tell them. I mean, bereavement is a serious deal. The teacher would love to know that piece of information. They can do some things to help that. If there's homework that's not getting done, tell the teacher why. Is it too much? Is it too easy? The kid gets bored? Is it too hard? That give and take in communication is going to make your teacher feel valued, and it's going to make you feel better because you're getting those questions answered that I don't need to ask the teacher that. Yeah, ask them. That's why they're there. So keep the lines of communication open with teachers, and please keep your contact information up to date. It's wonderful when we can make phone calls and they go right to the person that you're trying to get to, instead of, I never got that message. Well, your phone, you changed phones like a month ago and you never bothered to tell us, or you moved.
If you're a homeschool parent, you don't have to worry about that. Just saying.
That's true. You lucky dogs. But pay attention to the messages you're getting. I know sometimes, I'm like I said, I'm a parent. CUSD, another message. It's like they text you, they phone call you, they email you. It's like, oh no, but it's for important stuff. So take advantage of the communication piece, because you're going to benefit from it, your kid's going to benefit from it, and your child's going to benefit from it. So once again, have grace for yourself and keep going. This too will pass, and we will become stronger and more wise and know the Lord better and more intimately if we do this the right way. So hang in there.
I love that. Thanks, Todd. I love how you and Heidi both mentioned, getting your quiet time with the Lord in the morning and putting your list before the Lord, and, letting him direct your priorities. Because there's, like you said, it's just so much information and so much going on in a day that is different, from what it used to be. And that's great. Such good advice. Thank you. All right, Steve, last but not least, tell us what you got.
Not much more to add to that. You guys are amazing. That's so many good ideas. And I'll tell you, this distance learning thing is super hard. When we were tasked with doing that from home last year with a kindergartner and a second grader at home, and both of us trying to work my wife as a teacher and myself as a principal, all of us have to do the exact same thing at the exact same time. And we realized homeschool was pretty tough, but then we did start seeing Todd was saying well, right away, this advantage of having that time with your kids was cool. And then by the time we get back in the classroom, which now we're actually heading into this new transition phase, which is everybody's trying to figure out how to reopen here in the next couple of weeks. If we do what we think we can do, it will be a little over 7 months that students have been out of the classroom. So I think Morgan said, school is never going to be the same. That's a real challenge that we're trying to address with parents right now. So I just want to throw that out there to any parents. Your picture in your head of what it's going to be like when your student walks back on campus, if they're going back on campus this fall, it's not what you're thinking. We think it's going to be pretty cool. We're very, very optimistic about it. But we just spent weeks thinking about what that's going to look like. And now we're figuring out how can we get all this information out to parents so they can make a good decision about whether it's time to come back. Like Todd said, stay tuned to that information, but it won't ever be the same. And I do think that we've found a few cool things. I want to tell you 2 of our teachers and our staff's biggest takeaways of this time that we've just enjoyed watching parents and students do together. So one of our big concerns going into this process, and also going into summer, because last year, I think everyone's pretty willing to recognize that distance learning was tough. And schools spent a lot of time over the summer refining those practices, taking good notes from homeschool people. Like we work with Core Butte a lot, and we talk to them a bunch, like, what can you tell us? Give us some information. And then came back this year with a totally different take at it. And it's obviously been way more successful. But one of our big obstacles at first was like, how do we get parents to understand what we're trying to do? Like work completion is possibly like the worst way to measure student learning. Like finishing that worksheet has nothing to do with whether they learned it. Maybe they did the whole thing and they didn't learn anything. Maybe they did the whole thing wrong. Maybe you told them every single answer. And we see awesome stuff from the other side of the camera. Oh, that's a good hot tip for parents. We hear everything in your house on Zoom. All of it. Like, so if you are helping them, that's awesome. We want to see you helping your students, but we know.
Not necessarily, we don't necessarily want to see everything in the background though.
No, there actually are some things that we've seen that we wish we could unsee. That's true, Todd. Yeah. So anyways, now everybody's had to work on this so long that parents have a totally different outlook on this. Like parents have had to get this crash course in education. Like, here's what it means to learn. Here's the evidence that I need to see. And because they've been working with the teachers so closely, one of my hopes is that that's a thing that's just changed about education. So parents just got to like the biggest like peek behind the curtain ever, like on Wizard of Oz, right? Like you just saw the behind the scenes school. You saw your teacher in the classroom every day. You see how they talk to kids, sometimes good and bad, right? You see that sometimes your teachers get frustrated. You see that sometimes they work with kids in a way that you would never imagine, right? But parents got to dive in. Same thing homeschool parents have been doing forever. Like, what am I actually trying to teach? Am I trying to check off read for 30 minutes tonight? Or am I trying to have an adult child someday like Todd's that's a fluent reader, right? I'm not trying to make my kid read for 30 minutes. I do make them do that, but that's not the goal. And as a parent, when you shift that focus, you completely shift how you respond during that activity, right? Because work completion is a stressful thing for a lot of kids. Then you enter that anxiety thing Todd was talking about. They're not getting stuff done. The other thing, which I think every panelist has already mentioned, but I'll just put a little different spin on it. Find some way to embrace this opportunity. Some people have really found joy in it. We are super excited that some of our parents think that they have discovered homeschool. Well, that's fine. That's great. Like, we're not anti-homeschool at all. And we're excited for those group of parents. Other people have found joy in it in different ways. Some people haven't found joy in it, but I think you can still find a way to embrace it. And one thing that you could focus on if you're having a hard time finding joy in this, you get that a different level of understanding about how your child learns. If the only thing you get out of this 7 months is figuring out how each of your kids learns differently, like Todd was saying, that's going to change your dynamic with them the rest of your life. Even when they're an adult, it's also going to change how you guide them through school the next X number of years, whether they have 2 or 3 years or whether they have 10 more years. So I think we can embrace those opportunities. Yeah, it's tough. I have some notes there. That's, I think, everything I wanted to say for this part, Lana, but thanks.
I was muted. Awesome. Thank you. That's so awesome. I love how you guys all, have such varied experience, but you're all, saying a lot of the same things. I think that's so great. So let's see. We've had some questions come through on the chat. I have my questions. I figured we might try to move through just kind of in categories. So maybe first just talk about the kids, and then maybe, parents and how you guys do just self-care and, things like that. And then move on to like family and then church. Does that sound good? All right. So let's see here. So I guess we're moving into our Q&A portion. Is that good, Jeff? Yeah. Okay. Let's let's see, I have them written down. So the big question, and I don't know that this is one that we'll ever get to the bottom of it, but a question that I kept hearing over and over again is, how do I get my kid to focus? Right. And I can say just for myself, like I have a 3-year-old who started going to preschool this year, and it's amazing how he does things when he's in a group of kids. He'll do things and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Whereas like if I tried to get him to do that at home, he's like, yeah, right, mom. You know, so I think a lot of people are experiencing that, where it's like, my kid knew how to do this when they were in a group in a classroom, but now that they're at home and I'm telling them something, you know, it just changes the dynamic. So, I'm going to throw that question out to Morgan. And then if any of the rest of you guys feel like you want to jump in on that, feel free.
I would just, first and foremost, just bribe them with marshmallows. That's what
Chocolate
that's
chips.
what I do. That's why I'm not answering these questions. Go for it, Morgan.
It's so beautiful, because what I was going to say is, first and foremost, their nutrition is like the most important part of it. So, you know, starting a day with a really wholesome breakfast is really important to get their metabolism moving well, and even some exercise. My kids alternate dog walks before our school day begins, just to get them some fresh air when there is fresh air out to be had, and to get their blood pumping. And then they always have a really good breakfast and get themselves ready for the day. I have them get ready for the day, even though we go nowhere. They still make their beds and brush their teeth and get dressed in real clothes, because it helps them to, you know, like you dress for the part you want to play. So we get ready, even though, you know, they can wear mismatched socks and I don't care, you know what, but we're going to wear clothes to begin. And then focus factor after that depends on their age, but I think the understanding of knowing the little ones need to move. And I have a 10th grader, a 7th grader, and a 2nd grader. And and I think boys are also very different than girls, but there was a time when I was doing times tables on the trampoline with my 4th grader, and we were bouncing while we were saying it because we needed to move. There was times when to get my son, when he was 5, to read, all he needed was something in his hand to play with. And he would sit there and just read and read and read and read and read. But if he didn't have anything in his hand to play with, he'd be fidgeting and couldn't focus, and was all over the place. So there's different levels and to see, but I know a lot of times movement is important for kids, and smaller times, like goals. I think it's important to, like, even in the classroom, teachers don't say, okay, it's math hour. You know, things are shift and change, and there's websites you can find that have things called brain breaks. There's like Go Noodle is a big one. You know, it depends what age kids you have to, but taking brain breaks is really important, and making sure that there's water, they have water to drink, and maybe some healthy snacks too that they can munch on while they're going. But I don't know, maybe I should let somebody else go.
That's all great. Steve.
So I taught 2nd grade for years before I was a principal. So a huge part of my job was working on focus. And I happened to have a child of one of our 2 that really lacks focus. And also, this is kind of the reason I got into teaching, because I wasn't super focused. And I eventually found some teachers that did some things that worked for me. And that's why I was like, oh, there's some squirrely kids that need this, right? I got to say, Morgan, you might have hit like the biggest one of all, the nutrition. Like, for many kids, that might be like 99% of your answer. And the hard thing is, you might have to find a different thing. Our 2 kids happen to have one that, like, protein is the key. It's been that since she was a baby. And the other one probably just needs some carbs. And so if they're being bad, you're like, eat some cheese. You have a cracker. Like, and if you flip them, sorry, you're still not getting the focus, right? So you got to know your child really well. That's the other thing I was going to say. There's probably something that's blocking your child. So we always ask these questions at school, like, if they can't learn to read, like, what's the thing that's stopping them, right? Like, everybody's capable of learning to read. Mm-hmm. If they can't focus, what's the thing that's stopping them? Everyone can, for different amounts of time, right? But there's different things, and it's different for different kids. And like, a couple of the ones that sound really obvious, but you have to, like, try them to find out which one works. sound can be very distracting for some kids. And for me, sound is like the thing. Like I need a quiet space or it's just not going to happen.
Mhm.
But my daughter, who also struggles with focus, hers is visual, which is weird because she's pretty auditory too. But you can stick her in the corner of a really loud, chaotic room. And if she's looking away from the action, just crank out work. So you got to try all those things and find out what works.
Oh, that's really
The
helpful.
flip side of that, the thing I would say to try first as a parent is the thing that works for you. So like, you're an adult, but there's probably still some tasks in life that you don't like to do. And your child is like half of your DNA. So whatever you do to make yourself do those tasks, there's a good chance that'll probably work for your kids. So there's all kinds of other things like timers and incentives and all that. So that was kind of a meta answer, but a couple ideas there.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, so good. Thanks.
And I can tell you a fail I had, what never works is going, hey, focus. So just from an expert.
Good. Yeah, my husband knows that if he tells me to calm down, that's perfect, that I'm not going to calm down. Same with kids. Right?
Awesome. That's a great question and great answers. I love it. What are the other questions we got?
All right, so let's see. Next question. Let's see. How to keep children, okay, so here's the working from home question. How to keep children occupied in a meaningful way when you're working from home. So came out a little awkwardly before when I answered that question, or when I asked that question to Morgan and Heidi, but I know that you guys both do a lot of things outside of just homeschooling. So I'd love to hear, how do you juggle that? What do you do when you're trying to get work done and you're also trying to entertain your kids? I'm gonna let Heidi take this one away.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know how well I'll answer this, but I'll answer and everyone else can jump in, because when I really put my work hours more around our homeschool hours as opposed to the other way around. But that's just what works for our family, so that I can still focus on my kiddos when it's time to focus on them. So I will, I'm usually up before the rest of them, and just by nature of myself, I just like to be awake in the morning before them with a little quiet time, and I can get some work done then. Since we've been doing this a while, I've gotten good at knowing where there's independent work for my kids and what they can be doing. Guys, it's all out the window though when you have a 2-year-old. So we just kind of roll with it. But usually, there's some things that they can be doing on their own, and I know kind of how to piece our day together so that I could get like half an hour to go make a couple phone calls, or something like that, or I know that I'll sit down with my heavy hitters that I need to really sit with and focus on, at certain times during the day for each kiddo. And then I know the afternoon we save for, stuff they can do on their own, or that lovely reading time, or, something where they're more in charge of what they're doing and I can step away for a little bit, and things like that, just trying to kind of line up our schedules because we can be flexible and just create those little pockets of time.
That's good.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm similar. I do take advantage of the sleeping time when kids are either early morning or in the evening after they go to bed, and that's why we're pretty solid with bedtime too, because we got stuff to do after that. But I think we schedule to make sure, like what Heidi was saying, the bulk of the work where if they need mom, it's important that they get it. Otherwise, if I try to do anything, it's going to be mom, 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 because they don't just need my help, but they need my heart. They need me engaged and invested in them, and they need to know that I'm there for them and that they're important to me. So to make sure to get that solid chunk with them first. But yeah, homeschooling and working is like
Juggling.
I feel like I'm a really good juggler, but if you handed me 2 balls, I couldn't do a thing with them. But it's such a juggling act. Our school, I don't know if I said, we're a part of Core Butte Charter, so we have funds for tutors and classes, and so I have music lessons that the kids do, and I schedule them with the teachers in their Zoom, and I schedule them at specific times when I want to work or I need to work. And then, so they have a music lesson once a week. And then that same time for the rest of the week is also their music practice time. And I have my two ones that need me most, they do that all at the same time. So then I know I have that chunk of time specifically for my work.
Yeah. And probably just to add in there, the elephant in the room also is like with Heidi and Morgan, they're very flexible, which is incredible. But the reality is there's a lot of parents who are working full time and have to put in 40 hours at home and try and help their kids. So this is incredible challenge. This is why this is so vital and helpful. And so, Steve, I feel like you're like, let me talk to that. So
well, I got a few ideas because we did this last spring. So we've been super privileged because we found a way to, like a lot of businesses did, bring our employees and give them childcare on campus this year. But last year we did that. And my wife was like probably the most extreme example you could get because our youngest daughter was in kindergarten and my wife was teaching a kindergarten class. So she literally like, I have to be helping my kindergartner right now or she can't do what she needs. And 0 things independent.
Oh, no.
And I have to have her out of the room so I can do my Zoom with my class. Now my own kid who's in my kindergarten class is doing my Zoom from the other room. They're doing weird stuff just like everybody else's kid, right? So Todd said something about showing yourself grace earlier. Like you're going to need a lot of grace for your family right now because like I want to make it the best I can. One of the reasons we decided to bring our kids on campus, our staff kids, was because as a principal and teachers, I was telling our other administration, like, I won't be able to do all of my job, but I can do as much of it as I can. And my kids won't do all of school, but they'll do as much as you can. And you'll just have to like prioritize and do that because you can't just stop your job and stop feeding your family. Like, and I think so looking at things like I was saying earlier, like what's the big picture? What are you really trying to learn with your kids? Prioritize those things, give yourself a bunch of grace. And then I do have like one like good hot tip, and this one's real, and I would guess that it's real for all the teachers. So this doesn't work for, well, it might work for some homeschool if your school has this, but for the people who are trying to do distance or virtual learning right now, most of the teachers have either office hours that are posted every single day or have given you a way to contact them. The teachers have been removed from kids in a way that leaves them craving this interaction. So our teachers have a lot of stressful things they do, but every time I talk to them, they go, but my office hours, like I get to spend time with kids and in a smaller group. They get kids on there who come in to ask one math question and then they just keep them for the whole hour because they're like craving. So even though you feel like you're putting the teacher out, like if your teacher has office hours, send your kid on there like multiple times a week. Like the teachers love it. You're making their day. It's probably their most refreshing time of day. And,
wow, that's good.
And you can get something done for a little bit, right? Because your teacher is like, they're going to babysit them for an hour. They might not be able to keep them that long. I don't want to overcommit your kid's teacher, but really, if they have it, use it. The teachers are not saying that because they're obligated to, like, they want that time with kids.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Great. Cool. So we're getting a little pinch for time, so we're just going to go with a couple more questions. This one came in through our chat just now, and it was about let's see, physical activities for kids during a pandemic, especially boys. So Morgan, you had kind of mentioned that you were talking about doing, jumping on the trampoline while you're doing math or whatever. So I feel like you kind of touched on that. Do you, any other, just since I know that you have a boy, a physically active young boy, any other things you could say to that?
Well, scheduling it in, the smoke has put another like level of difficulty onto it, but hopefully the smoke stays cleared, but in our schedule, we have like park time. We live by Hancock Park and we head over there and I'm taking a bucket of balls and a bat and baseball gloves, and I go in with my 7-year-old and my 12-year-old, and we go over and do that. Or in the middle of the day, we take a break and we ride our bikes to the library to go get some books because the library is open. So any chance, or I mean, it's really could be as easy as like you see, you know, my son today was stressed and doing math, and his energy was built up, and I said, it's time for you to go take a walk around the block, or you know, we need to do a couple sprints. And my little one, who's 7, we were reading The Secret Garden, and there's a part where a little girl gets a skipping rope, and so we got her a skipping rope, and we allow it in the house because sometimes we can't go outside, and so she'll just sit there. She is like the kind of kid that will just sit there and bounce. So now she has a jump rope, and so she sits there and bounces on her jump rope. And any chance we get, there's so many options for movement. We also did, our kids like, you know, video games, and we try to balance that out, but we got Just Dance. And I know we got that during the smoke time, and that really has helped. And they'll all dance together, and we have a pretty small space, and it still works. There's also yoga programs that we do. There's what's that? Yeah, there's one on YouTube. Cosmic Kids Yoga is really cool. It like tells stories while doing yoga, and it's pretty impressive how it gets the kids' energies out.
Yeah. Lana, you're muted, but Heidi's gonna respond anyway.
I just had a couple things to add, because we have some kiddos that like, I mean, most like kids, but if you are stuck inside because of the smoke, there's some cool websites like Go Noodle. I know Steve put that in, and Morgan mentioned it. Or we found too that Beachbody does kids workouts, so we've been doing a lot of those. The being inside of the smoke just definitely put an extra challenge. My kids have started rollerblading in the house, which isn't for everyone, but sometimes you can do it. When there's no smoke, I've just found that, you know, we have a basketball hoop outside, or like Morgan, we're running up and down the sidewalk. I think when I get involved and I do a little bit with them, it gives them energy and motivation to do more so than if I just said, go out and run to the side, you know, run to the stop sign and back. So I feel like it's been working for me too, to just throw my tennis shoes on and go shoot some hoops. And I noticed that we're out there longer, we burn more energy. And I mean, obviously with the smoke, now we're doing it, you know, in front of the screen a little bit more, but we do what we can, and just throwing that out there.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, anybody else? Going? No? All right, so one more question. How do you balance grace and mercy and discipline? Because I think a lot of us are having to deal with discipline more than maybe we have in the past. I'm gonna throw that to Todd.
Good call. I was going to throw that to Todd if you didn't.
Well, you know, it doesn't hurt to put yourself in your kid's shoes, you know, because you were a kid one time too, and you tend to remember those adults that treated you respectfully. And, you know, I think respect is part of grace. We all know that, you know, in the grand scheme of things, we've all sinned and fallen short, but God didn't hold that against us. He gave us away. And we need to remember that when we're dealing with our kids. They're going to make mistakes. Sometimes they're not going to mean to make them, and sometimes they are. And you have to know the difference. Because for me, I think the way that I'm going to respond to one of my kids who does something intentionally wrong is going to be different than something that was like, they had no idea this was going to happen, but it happened, so now we got to deal with it. And so there is that grace, but and mercy in that regard, but there also is consequences. They need to know that if they've done something wrong, that there is in a sense, a price to pay. There is sowing and reaping. That is something that happens in nature. It happens with relationships, because you're teaching them now how to deal with other people, because they're going to grow up and they're going to get married possibly, and they need to know how to deal with their spouse. If their way of dealing with things is to throw things at their little brother or sister now, okay, well, you know, maybe when they're 2, it looks kind of funny to begin with, but it doesn't grow up looking very funny. It looks really kind of scary. And so you got to start young. You have to have grace, and you do have to also remember their personality and what impacts them and how they learn. Because learning does, like I said earlier, it's more than just the 3 R's. I remember my parents used to say, you know, I have one brother, one sibling, he's an older brother. And we would do something, we would get in trouble, and, you know, they would, because he's the oldest, he would get in trouble first, and they could just look at my expression that I was like, that was enough. It was almost enough. It's not like you have to spank 10 times on that spanking. Did I say spanking? Oh my goodness. I take spanking back. You do some kind of consequence to that child, and that doesn't mean you have to double up on the kid that really got on your nerves because they rub you the wrong way. You got to be the adult, and that can be hard. So grace is realizing who you are as a parent. Maybe it's calling in the spouse to deal with that particular issue. Maybe it's just telling the kid, you know what? I really don't think I can talk about this right now. We're going to talk about this later. And giving yourself grace to go away, process, and then deal with the situation with mercy. You're going to deal with it because it needs to be dealt with. Yeah. But it's way better to deal with it when you're in the right frame of mind.
Len, I'd love to add to that. Todd, that was really, really incredible. I love that you said respect is part of grace. That's really true. And from the very get-go of this, I just thought, man, we've got to have grace for ourselves, and even more so for our kids. And part of what you were just talking about just made me think about how, Carissa and I, we have 4 kids, all doing school, all different age groups. I mean, it is really unique. And there's ups and downs. I think all of us are experiencing these ups and downs. But as we communicate to one another, again, we're fortunate enough to both be here. She primarily really walks through all the school stuff with them, but I'm her advocate. I'm her helper. I can jump in anytime. But what we've realized is sometimes I can have a different perspective and point of view for some of my kids. Like I think Todd, you said early on, they're all different. None of them are the same. And so with one child in particular, I just have him come right in here, sit with me on the couch, and we talk through stuff if we need to, or sometimes honestly, he just needs to wrestle with me or just like relax and understand like there's, you don't have to get everything right. In fact, you know what? I mean, this is me saying this. I don't know if the principals might say this, but it's okay if you don't turn that in. It's okay. You're going to be okay. And in fact, it might teach you more to be able to not turn that in and see the grace that you receive in place of that than to force yourself to make sure you get all of this stuff done. So just really communicating with your spouse or maybe grandma or grandpa who are in to really partner together through this whole process. But grace is just, oh man, a huge key to that. Lana, were you going to?
No, I love that. I think what I am hearing just kind of overall is just that as parents, like we're obviously being, pushed to our limits. And I heard something so good this week that I think is just really fitting. And it said, God didn't put you in this position because you were strong and because you could do all these things. It's because he's strong. It's because he's, he has all of the resources that we need. And so that's why the most important thing we can do every day is go to him first. And, like Heidi said, just lay our list out, lay out our, whatever is weighing on you, and just let him show you what's important, because it's an impossible task without his help.
Yeah. So good.
Great. Yeah.
Heidi, go ahead.
Well, something in there. I was just thinking about what's been working in our house and it's been pretty impactful is that kind of on the topic of discipline, it's being modeled through Brian and I also, because we're sinful, right? And we'll raise our voice, or I can't say Brian ever does, but I do. And it's such a big difference though. And I'm like, okay, kids, I'm sorry. That was not okay for me to do that. And I'm apologizing to you. And can you forgive me? Can you help me? I need Jesus just as much as you. And I sin just as much, like we're all in this together and we need Jesus. And I'm sorry, and I just think that's been really impactful, especially as we're super close together right now, but just throwing it out.
Yeah. And to add to that, I added a passage on just the comments for everybody to reference, but the other passage I was thinking of, where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. And Paul says that, he says, I'm the greatest of all sinners. I mean, and if you look at his track record, he might be. And so none of us are perfect, and nor is there any expectation that there should be perfection. And to understand, like, we're all in this learning curve that's just off the charts. And to be able to talk to your child and say, you know what, I totally messed up. I got too excited. I got too heated. I got too frustrated, and I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? And it is the greatest example of Christ when you humbly come before them and really be able to communicate that. That says an amazing amount. They'll remember those things far more than the math worksheet you're trying to trudge through. Like, so, I mean, that's really, really good stuff. I so appreciate you guys. Lana, you want to close this out, or anybody need to say anything else before, like, I gotta say this before we leave? Yeah. Oh, Morgan.
Yeah, I just had a scripture that when I was praying, preparing for this early in the week, and a song came to me. It's from Jeremiah 17:7. It starts and it says, "Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord and whose hope is in the Lord, for he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spreads out its roots by the river and will not fear when the fire comes. But its leaf will be green and will not be anxious in the year of drought, nor will it cease from yielding fruit." So that was in a song that I heard too, and I just thought that was really beautiful and encouraging. And it led me to look up more about the fruits of the Spirit too, and how I want to overall demonstrate that to my children and encourage them to walk in those fruits too. And it all comes from the time spent with Jesus, that surrender to him completely, day by day. And I think those gifts are revealed in that.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys are fantastic.
Love it. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for being here. Thank you to all of the parents who showed up. I hope this was encouraging. I hope it was helpful. If you had a question that you felt like maybe it didn't get an answer, you can email me. I believe my email address should be on our website. And I'm also going to try and send a follow-up email with some resources. So like there were certain things that we mentioned on here, like Go Noodle or whatever. And I'm going to try to get those all down so that you guys can have links to those. And yeah, thanks. This was, I feel like I learned a lot. That was amazing. Thank you guys just for sharing your wisdom.
Hey, I would,
oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I just want to close this in prayer. That's all I want to do. So is that good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let me pray for everybody. Jesus, we just thank you for Lana and these four amazing people. Lord, we just thank you for the wisdom that you just displayed through each of our gifts, Lord. And I'm blessed as a parent. I'm blessed to just be part of this. So Lord, I thank you that you see each person, you see each parent, you see each one of us working through this challenging season with our kids. And Lord, I just feel like you're saying to all of us, I'm with you. I'm here to help. I'm not leaving you. I'm not forsaking you. I'm here with you and your child, and I have a plan. And so, Lord, I thank you that you are with us and that you know exactly what our kiddos need, and you know how you can communicate through us to them. So we just offer you our hearts and our voices into our kids' lives. And we say, Lord, have your way. Let this be a season that we look back on with gratefulness instead of sorrow. That we would look back and say, that was challenging, but it was so good. And so we lift it up to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Heidi,
right.
Todd, Steve, Morgan, Adam, Lana, you guys are amazing. Oh man, we might have to do this again because I think people will want more of this. So that was,
yeah, I hear more.
I don't know. I was very blessed by all of you. So thank you. Lana, thanks for putting it together. And we'll see you guys later. Peace.